Welcome, Annie Collins here for White Rose Crafts. Today we'll be creating this nice fall pumpkin card. Let's go over some of the products I used. The first is our stamp set. It is from Brutus, Monroe, and it's called Hello Pumpkin. It has this nice image of this detailed pumpkin and the sentiment Hello Pumpkin. The next is our 6x6 paper pad. It's from Cartabella and it's called Fall Break. We'll be using 2 sheets of pattern paper from here. These pattern papers are double-sided. We'll be using the cream based with the little clusters of pumpkins, and the teal one that has little dots of pumpkin and cream on there. The other side is a plaid and a variety of pumpkins and squashes, but we'll be concentrating on this side. The Kraft Creations peel off leaves. These are they come in a variety of colors, but I'm using the gold ones here, and they have several sizes of leaves. They even have on the ends, I don't know if you can tell, but they have vines of leaves as well as little gold dots. I went ahead and pre-cut 2 hexagon shapes, one in cream cardstock and one out of corrugated Kraft cardstock, and I'll be using those to layer our sentiment. And I have a piece of accent opaque white 80-pound super smooth cardstock, which we'll be stamping and coloring our pumpkins on. And I have several Copic markers, and I'll have those listed below in the description box, just in case it's hard to see here on screen. I will have everything as well listed in the description box. For our stamping of our images, we're going to use Memento and Tuxedo black. And for our sentiment, we'll be using Versafine in Onyx black. I also have a piece of masking paper because we'll be doing a little bit of masking with our pumpkins, because I want to create a nice trio of pumpkins. So let's get started with our project. I have the Memento ink here, and I've mounted my pumpkin stamp onto an acrylic block. I'm going to stamp my center pumpkin down first, and then I'll place my mask over it. I've already pre-cut my mask, and this is from Inkadink paper, so I will have that listed as well, because we have that in the shop. And I place that right over my pumpkin. Now I'm going to stamp a pumpkin to the right of it, making sure it overlaps, and one to the left of it, again, making sure it overlaps. And when I take off my mask here in a second, the first pumpkin will appear like it's in front. Now we're going to go ahead and color. I just bring in a clipboard with extra copy paper that I keep for coloring. Alright, so we're going to start from the lightest to the darkest, and we're going to start with our center pumpkin. We're going to use the BG11, BG32, and BG23. And what makes it easy about these pumpkins is all the shadowing, it's already basically done for you. You just have to color all the darker areas with your darkest color, the mid areas in your mid-tone, and then your lightest area in your lightest color. But I always start out building a nice base of my light color first, and then blend out everything else. And then I repeat it all over again. So now we're going to move on to our orangey, oops, I lost the cap there, my orangey pumpkin, which will be the following, which are Y32, Y21, and Y32, YR02, and YR09. And again, the same thing. I just start out with the lightest, then my mid-tone, then my darkest. And then I repeat it all to make sure it's all well blended. And I sped this up just to save us some time, because I'm not the best colorist in the world. I'm still learning myself, and I color slow to the point my son makes fun of me, but it's okay. I also draw slow, so that's okay. So now we're going to move on to our taupe or warm colored pumpkin. I wanted it to have that like creamy tone to it, so these are the W markers. It's W00, W1, and W3. And again, just following the same thing, light, medium, dark, then repeating it so I have a nice blended going on. nice blend, not blended, nice blend. So now that we're done, I'm going to fussy cut our little pumpkins out. No, we're not done. They have stems, they need to be colored. And those stems are going to be with the E markers, E33 and E35. Then I'll fussy cut them out. Just jumped ahead of myself. There we go. Now we're going to fussy cut them out. I do a rough cut first, and then I go in and do all my detail cutting. I basically keep my scissors straight and move my paper. Once I have that all cut out, I'm going to grab my Memento marker in Tuxedo black and just go around the edges, just so that I don't have that white paper showing through. So now that's all set. We can put that to the side so that we can bring in all the rest of the components for our card. I'm going to trim down our pattern paper to create our layers for our card. So I bring in my trimmer here, and I'm going to cut this dot paper at 4 by 5 1/4 so that it leaves a nice little frame all around my card base. And then this paper, I fussed with it. Ultimately, it's going to end up being cut 1 3/4 by 4, but I changed my mind a few times before we get there. So I just wanted to show you the process, that I don't always know right off the bat what I'm going to do. Most of the time I don't. Sometimes I do, and I sketch it out and I have an idea, but for this one I was just like, yeah, no, this size, oh, that looks horrible, oh, this is too big, too small. I was really Goldilocksing that whole routine right there. But finally I settled on the 1 1/4 by 4, and now I'm going to go ahead and bring in some heavyweight brown cardstock. This is 110 pound, and I'm going to make our card base. I cut an 8.5 by 11 piece down to 5.5 by, so then I could, basically I cut it right down in half, and then I scored that at 4 1/4 so that I have our card base. So now I'm going to go ahead and adhere our first layer of cardstock, of pattern paper, to our cardstock. So I'm going to get more centered here so that you can see me better. I'm going to grab some liquid adhesive, and I'm going to apply it to the back, making sure I get the little corners, because if not they peel up and it drives me insane. So as you can see, I have a nice little border all around my card there. Now I'm going to add the pumpkin layer, the pumpkin paper layer, and I'm leaving just a little bit of the bottom pattern paper showing on the bottom. And now I'm going to add my hexagons where I want them. And this is corrugated cardstock. I've had this in my stash for a while, and I'm like, hey, this would be nice to be using on some fall cards. It gives a nice texture to them without giving you a whole lot of bulk. And so this is basically the design I'm going for right here. But I'm going to need to stamp my sentiment on my cream cardstock here. So I'm going to bring in my Versafine Onyx black ink. I'm going to mount my sentiment onto my acrylic block. And then I'm going to ink it up and stamp it on my hexagon here. Just trying to make sure I had it on there straight. And moving my ink out of the way because I am known to stick my hands in that. No matter how hard I try, I get it in there every single time. So I have my sentiment on there. Now I'm ready to finish adhering, or complete my card adhering. Okay, so I get this on here quite centered, which I'm like, yes, finally something centered. All right, because Center and I, we're not friends. We are frenemies. I want to be friends, lined up, straight, yeah. But no, it doesn't want to with me. It's like, no, not you. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. So here we go. I'm putting some foam adhesive on the back of our pumpkins just to get a nice little dimension to it. I want some dimension, but not a whole lot. So this is some low profile foam adhesive. I'm going to peel off the backing, and I'll place that towards the bottom here of our hexagons. I want some of that cream and Kraft to just show through so that my pumpkins don't look like they're floating about. Alright, so now we're going to peel these little leaves, and I'm going to stick them right behind the pumpkins as if they're attached. I used a bigger one, and then a small one I'm going to layer right on top for the center one. For the rest of the other two pumpkins, I just used the small leaves and just stick them facing one to the right and one to the left. That just gives it a nice little accent of gold. Now there's these little bitty circle stickers here, and I'm going to put them right by the sentiment. I'm going to put a cluster of 3. I'm going to put 2 right on the cream cardstock, and then 1 on the Kraft one. And I'm thinking, yeah, that looks good. Then after a few minutes, I look at it some more, and I'm like, I need a little something. I need to bring that gold down a bit. So, see, I'm thinking, yeah, this looks good. Then I'm like, it needs something. So I'm going to go ahead and bring some more of those 3 little dots towards the bottom left-hand corner here. I'm going to place 2 on the pumpkin paper and 1 on the little dot paper. And now I have the gold moving across the card in a nice diagonal way. As you can see, it's nice. You have some dimension, but it's not so much. And inside, I can always place a layering piece of white cardstock for our message. All right, so again, we will use the Cartabella fall break paper. We use these 2 pattern pieces. We use the Craft Creations peel-offs, these leaves, and the little circles. And the Brutus Monroe Hello Pumpkin stamp set. We use the stamp, the pumpkin and the sentiment. We use Versafine Onyx Black ink and Memento Tuxedo Black for our sentiment and image, some liquid glue, our Copics, some thin foam adhesive to bring our card all together. I will have all of that listed in the description box below. But don't forget to join us over at White Rose Crafts on our Facebook group, on our blog. We have challenges and fun things from the designers. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you found some inspiration.